You are sitting inside, completely safe. The storm outside is tearing branches from trees, wind strong enough to strip shingles from roofs, rain coming sideways, and then it hits you. A few hours ago, a cardinal was perched at your feeder, a creature that weighs less than a handful of pocket change. Where is it right now? Welcome to Bird Sense. I've stood at my window during storms thinking exactly this, and what I found when I started looking into it changed the way I watch every dark sky. If you're new here, subscribe before you leave, because what you're about to learn has been invisible to most people their entire lives. Today, we're going into what your backyard birds actually do when a violent storm hits, how they survive, what decisions they make, and what is happening right outside your window right now while the sky falls. Stay until the end. Because the last thing we cover involves a bird that does something during a storm that looks, to any observer, completely like death. Number 1. They know before you do. The first thing to understand is that your birds are never caught off guard. Long before you see a dark cloud or feel the first raindrop, the birds already know. Deep within their inner ear, birds possess a specialized structure that functions as a biological barometer. It detects microscopic drops in atmospheric pressure, changes so subtle that no human could perceive them without instrumentation. The moment pressure begins to fall at the rate associated with a severe storm, an alarm fires through their nervous system. This is why in the hours before a major storm, your feeders erupt into what looks like chaos. Chickadees, finches, sparrows, cardinals, all of them hitting the feeder at once. They are not just eating, they are loading fuel. A small songbird must consume enough high-fat calories to sustain a hyper-fast metabolism through potentially days of complete fasting. Without that fat reserve, the danger isn't hypothermia or being blown from a branch. It is starvation, silent, internal, invisible, in the dark, while the storm rages. If you have ever noticed your feeders going completely empty in the hours before a storm, you were watching an emergency fueling operation. You just didn't know it. Number 2, they vanish into plain sight. Once the rain starts and the wind reaches dangerous speeds, the survival strategy shifts entirely. The instinct most people assume, birds follow, fly away, outrun the storm, is physically impossible for most backyard species. A house sparrow cannot outfly a system spanning hundreds of miles. So instead, they do something far more intelligent. They vanish. Biologists call these hiding locations microhabitats, the deepest interior of a dense evergreen, the thickest section of a hedge, the hollow cavity inside a dead oak, the leeward side of a structure, the face completely shielded from the prevailing wind. The cardinal that was at your feeder this morning is now pressed into the densest part of your holly bush, 3 feet from your back door. Invisible, and once positioned, something extraordinary happens. A bird's foot is engineered with a passive tendon locking system. The moment a bird crouches and grips a branch, the tendons in its leg automatically clench tight around the wood. This requires zero muscular effort to maintain. The bird is mechanically locked onto the branch. A storm can whip that tree violently back and forth for hours, and the bird remains attached, not through strength or struggle, through pure structural engineering. It simply rides out the chaos. Researchers testing this mechanism found that a bird's grip during storm conditions can withstand forces far beyond what the bird would ever encounter in normal perching. The same foot that delicately picks a single sunflower seed from your feeder tray becomes a structural clamp, capable of holding through wind speeds that would knock a human off their feet. Evolution spent millions of years engineering this, and it works every single time. Number 3, the waterproofing system you never knew existed. The cold and the rain present the next challenge, and bird feathers are not passive insulation. They are an active system. During a storm, a bird activates a gland located near the base of its tail, the uropygial gland, which secretes a specialized waterproofing oil. Using its beak, the bird meticulously spreads this oil across every layer of feathers, creating a surface that sheds water almost completely on contact. Rain lands and rolls off. The skin beneath stays dry. Simultaneously, the bird puffs its feathers outward, trapping a layer of warm air directly against its skin. A sparrow in a storm looks almost twice its calm weather self. But more importantly, it creates a personal thermal bubble. Core temperature stays regulated, even as the surrounding air turns hostile. Grip locked, body waterproofed, heat sealed in. The bird simply waits. I think about this every time I watch rain streak down my windows. 3 feet away, hidden in the hedge, a bird is sitting in engineered warmth while the storm does its worst. Number 4. The birds that fly into the storm. Not every species hunkers down and hides. Larger birds, coastal gulls, terns, and pelicans use a strategy so extreme it looks reckless. Radar surveillance of major hurricanes has repeatedly captured something remarkable: massive flocks of birds flying directly into the eye of the storm. Inside a hurricane's eye, conditions are eerily calm: clear skies, still air, a column of stability, surrounded by a rotating wall of catastrophic wind. Birds that reach the eye are effectively trapped inside it. As the hurricane moves, they move with it, carried hundreds of miles in a traveling cylinder of calm, unable to exit through the deadly eye walls surrounding them. When the storm finally weakens and dissipates, these birds are deposited far outside their normal range, exhausted, disoriented, in entirely foreign landscapes. It is a massive gamble. But for a bird that cannot survive inside the eye wall, the eye is the only viable option. Number 5. The bird that pauses itself. For hummingbirds, none of these strategies are sufficient. A hummingbird's metabolism operates at a speed that strains comprehension. Their hearts beat over 1,000 times per minute at peak activity. They require constant nectar intake to sustain that rate. A multi-day storm that eliminates access to flowers is not an inconvenience. It is a death sentence within hours. To survive, hummingbirds enter torpor. Torpor is a physiological state that sits between sleep and hibernation. The bird hangs upside down from a branch, lowers its body temperature dramatically, sometimes to within a few degrees of the surrounding air, and drops its heart rate from over 1,000 beats per minute down to fewer than 50. Breathing slows to near imperceptible. To any observer, the bird appears completely dead. It is not dead. It has paused itself. It has suspended its own life processes to the minimum required to survive, and it will hold that state until external temperatures rise and light returns. When conditions shift, the hummingbird's body restarts, heart rate climbing, temperature rising, eyes opening, and it flies off as though nothing happened. The ruby-throated hummingbird that visits yards across the eastern United States does this. The bird at your feeder this morning is capable of pausing its own existence to survive the night. Number 6. The danger after the storm. When the storm finally breaks and the sun returns, the surviving birds face one final danger. They emerge from their hiding spots completely depleted. Fat reserves are gone, and the landscape around them has been stripped. Seeds scattered by wind, insects washed away, natural food caches destroyed. The birds that successfully rode out the storm are now in a race against starvation in a temporarily barren environment. This is the moment your bird feeder becomes genuinely critical. Filling it immediately after a major storm provides emergency calories to survivors who have nothing left in reserve. The wind has stopped, but the starvation clock is ticking, louder than ever. Research on post-storm bird behavior in the eastern United States shows that feeders stocked within hours of a storm's end see dramatically higher activity than normal, sometimes 3 to 4 times the usual traffic, as birds from a wide area converge on any available food source. The birds that find food fastest after a storm are the ones that survive to breed the following spring. The ones that don't. It is that direct. What you do in the hours after a storm ends has a measurable effect on which birds are still in your yard come April. That is not sentiment. That is ecology. Your feeder is not decoration. After a storm, it is emergency infrastructure. The next time you sit inside listening to a storm, you will know what is happening beyond your window, hidden in the hedges, locked onto branches inside thrashing trees, hanging motionless and cold from invisible perches in the darkness. An entire community of survivors is executing a system refined over millions of years. They do not panic. They prepare, they lock on, and they wait for the light to return. That cardinal will almost certainly be back at your feeder tomorrow. Tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed your feeders go completely empty before a storm hit, or found a bird sheltering somewhere unexpected during bad weather? I want to hear about it. I read every one. I'll see you in the next one.